Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica. I'm excited to have you join me in the studio today as I explore some negative shape painting. You're going to see how I do a little bit of lifting, how I do a little bit of pushing into the background. Because this project was a bit of an experiment for me, you're going to hear me talk through some of the things that I came up against. Even if you decide not to follow along, I think the little tips and techniques I share along the way will be helpful for you in your own journey. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so for my watercolor paper here, I have 140-pound cold press cotton watercolor paper, and I've got my paint. And what I'm going to do actually is kind of do a wet on wet effect first. And so I have taped this down to a small board so that it will sort of ripple a little bit less. And I'm going to use, for paint today, I have my quinacridone magenta in this well, my phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and I'm going to make a mixture of quinacridone magenta and ultramarine blue to make a purple. But I also have a purple here that I had made with phthalo blue, so I may use both depending on what effect I'm after. I'm going to use the ultramarine blue because I think I might want to play a little bit with the idea of having a little bit of granulation happening today, just to create a little bit of a fun loose effect. And so I'm going to I'll probably use some of both. I'll use some of both of the blues. So I'm just going to add a little water to my well here and some of this magenta. And then some of the ultramarine blue. I might start with that kind of more rosy, almost mauve color of purple, and then I'll add more of the ultramarine as I go. I'm going to start, I think, lighter, and we'll see. So let's get started. I see I've already dropped a drop of water on here. That's okay. I'm just going to wet the whole thing, and I'm looking at the reference photo to keep in mind where the flower blossom or the lilac branch or blossom is kind of coming through like this. And so I'm going to be going with more pinks in this area, and then I'll be going more blues towards the outside, and I'll be doing more layers. You're going to see how this shapes up. So I've just gone ahead and filled this with water, and then I might as well stick with this large brush. This is a number 12 round Artegria. Said that funny, didn't I? Artegria round 12. Anyways, I think you know what I mean. Anyways, I'm going to come through here with the pink. Ooh, that's a lot. This is my magenta. So I want to have a little bit more lightness in here because this is where there actually are some of the lightest lilacs. I do want to have some though. I don't want to leave any area completely white. So kind of just fill that in, and let's see, looking at the reference photo, definitely we need some more of this color coming. So put it next, right beside our magenta. I think I want quite a bit of it because there's a lot of this color in here. There's really not, I wouldn't say a super huge amount of pink. There is some pink in here, but I'll drop a little bit more of the magenta. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between these two and letting them both kind of bleed around. And then as I come out to the outside, I will start taking some of this ultramarine blue, and we'll see. I'll add purple to this. This is way too blue, and I want to have more of a phthalo blue look in here after, but I'll add the phthalo blue later. So what I really just want for now is just to get the whole thing covered in color. What do I want to do as far as getting darker right now? Do I want to add the phthalo blue? Let's carry on with just a little bit more. This is my magenta, and I'm just gonna kind of go a little bit more on the purple side up here. So I'm almost making purple on my page just by throwing a little bit more of my purpley colors, magenta color on top of the ultramarine blue. Make sure I'm happy with the pattern that I'm getting. And then down here, yeah, let's go darker again. Let's do the same thing. Just a little more ultramarine blue. Ooh, that's a lot, but that's okay. I'm liking it. I want to get a little darker. It will be getting darker in other layers, but I might as well kind of start a little bit darker than I am. And you know what I might do is just lift in a few places. I'm noticing there's some light right here where I can see more of a phthalo blue color. I'm not going to put the phthalo blue in right now, so I'm just soaking this out with my brush. So I just have a little bit of lightness. Let me just take a paper towel here. This is used, but this works. And just kind of lift a little bit, lift a little bit. Yeah, I want to have some light in here because I think that's kind of pretty. I like that. And then I do see some light down here as well in the reference photo. So maybe I'll just, or I should say blue. I see the teal blue, right? And so that's where I'm wanting to put teal blue, but I think I might wait and do that in another layer. Should we? Or should we do it now? Let's do it now. Let's get as much done as we can in this layer because I want to make this a fast painting, not something that's going to take us hours and hours. So I'll just drop that in there and drop a little bit more over here. Like that. Anywhere else that I want to put a little bit more concentrated, I can drop it right into the ultramarine blue as well. All these colors will work okay together. I don't mind if I get a slight bit of muddiness here, because these are all close enough that they're, you know, like you can see the purple I get using my phthalo blue and my quinacridone magenta is a pretty enough purple. So we're fine with these colors that we're doing today. And I'm not worrying about the fact I see tiny bits of yellow in here. I'm just like, you know what, we can decide if we do anything to the centers of those, or we just keep this all kind of more of an analogous color scheme. And by analogous, I just mean these colors kind of go together, or they're all lined up beside each other on the color wheel. Yeah, I'm gonna look just a little bit out of here. I feel like those blues are almost, I don't know, I kind of like them touching, but I think they need to, maybe that bridge, that little blue bridge could come a little bit lower. I want this to have area where we're gonna have a little bit more of those blossoms. So I don't want the blue where the blossoms are, right? Okay, I'm getting a little bit nitpicky already. Just putting a little bit more of this purpley color in here. Okay, might come just one more swoop down here. A little bit more of this color. Like I say, I want to make sure that I'm happy with where the blossoms end up landing. So, okay. I'm gonna try that. We'll see what happens. We can always, the other thing you can always do if you want to is drop a little bit of water for some pretty effects. We'll see if we're happy with this, but yeah, let's just do it like that. We'll see what we think when we come to do our next layers. This is gonna already give us a little bit of something interesting to work with. And this is where we could have, these could be areas that end up becoming like flowers later. So I'm going to let that dry and then I'll be back. Okay, so this is dry, and what I want to do is take a minute and talk about how I'm going to draw the flowers on here. I'll probably be drawing the flowers kind of where there is these little white splotches now, because I think that adds a little bit of dimension and I like how it looks. But to draw them, I have a scrap of paper here, or just a plain whatever cheap piece of paper. I'm just going to show you kind of the idea of what I'm doing, and then I'll go ahead and draw them right on here. So if I'm going to do a like straight on lilac, I'm going to do kind of like an X like that. And then I'm going to turn each of these into a petal. So kind of like that. I'm looking at the reference photo to kind of see what shape the petals are. They're kind of something like that, right? If you look at the reference photo. So you're going to just turn each of those. It's a little lopsided that I just did. You can see that one's a little too tall, but okay, something like that, right? And that's going to be our little lilac flower. And then there's this little kind of star, if you will, or little diamond in the center. But I'm going to go around and do some of them just like that. Squiggly line, no worries. This is supposed to be loose, simple, relaxing. Try and just enjoy the process as you do this. And so that's kind of an idea for the head-on lilacs. Now there's going to be some of them that are kind of sideways. So you can have the one line, two lines, and then one like this. So it's almost like an X, but you know, these are kind of going different directions, and these are going to be a little bit more like laying on their side or flat. This one here going to be shorter because it's facing us, and maybe this one here maybe a bit longer, depending on the angle. So you can look at the reference photo and you'll see there's a few different ways you could do that. So you could have even this back one not as tall, this front one not as tall, and then these ones even more skinny, if that makes sense, right? Something like that. All right, so let's add some to this one. And I almost feel like, just looking at this, I almost feel like there's one right away that's doing this. So like I see, rather than being a perfect X, it's almost like, do you see almost how it's working like that with just the way that my water is dropping? So I'm going to kind of follow what's happening with my water as my guide to decide how I want to draw my little petals in here. So let's just do that for this one. So this is kind of a front, almost front facing petal, but it's a little bit sideways. Let's do one that's a perfect kind of X here. You don't have to be perfectly lined up with your white splashes. You definitely have some of the pink in there as well. So I'm just going to lightly draw this in. And I'm not worrying about the center shapes for now, like the little diamonds. We can do that later. So I'm just going to go around and figure out where it feels like I could draw one of these little lilac flowers. And you can see here, I'm a little bit, this one's a little wonky. That's okay. I'm just going to let it be wonky. Where else could I do one? There could be one down. Well, no, I don't need any down there. I'm going to just fill this area in at the top. So I'll bring some close together. So some are like, you can't see the full thing. So let's do like maybe 3. And this fourth one is kind of hidden. And then again, fill this in, or create the outline of the petal. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I've kind of created a little bit of a cluster. So I'll speed the video up as I do this, and then I'll be back. This one is a little bit, I'm making it a little bit like tipped this way. I'm gonna just do this kind of cluster in the middle. I'm not even 100% sure I'm not gonna put paint on some of these. I'm gonna go ahead and do another coat of paint. And I kind of think I will probably put a little bit of water on some of these anyway. So what I'm gonna do is I did draw them dark enough you can kind of see them, but I'm gonna just lighten things off just a smidge so that things don't show through too much with the water that I add. And I'm going to probably, you know what, some of these back ones, I wish I hadn't have quite drawn them, but that's okay. I'm gonna just go with this. I want to keep it fast and flowing here. So I got my paint. And I'm gonna basically fill the whole thing except for the center area. So let's just go fast, fill it in, and then I'm gonna come in, kind of go around the details more finely. So just get the water on here quick. And then I'm gonna use the tip of my brush to kind of create the detail here where I come more in and define these. So just kind of go around, take my time if I can. So I'm gonna just turn this around and kind of keep adding the water, just not filling in the lilac. So I'm filling in everything with water except the lilac cluster that I drew. And once again, I'll speed it up. Alrighty, now when I went in to do all of these little little shapes in here, I didn't even fully do them yet. I'm gonna do that with the paint. So I'm going to use this kind of purpley color here that we made. You know what, I probably could be using a smaller brush already. This one is feeling a bit big. So definitely if you feel comfortable using a smaller brush, definitely use one. This is feeling too big for what I'm doing. So I'm gonna switch over to a smaller brush right away here. Let's use the 8 instead. And I'm filling it in with my purple color. And I'm just dropping that in, and I'm gonna, when I come out here a little ways, I'll add a little bit more color, maybe a little bit of the blues. You know what, not too much. Let's keep it purple for now because the purple is really pretty and it will keep the lilac look. So I'm just turning my page as I do this so that I can more easily get into these little shapes, the nooks and crannies of these little lilacs. Do want to make sure I come to the edge of my painting. And if I need to make it mix up more color, I can. But so far, I'm doing okay. And I don't even mind, like right there, I left a little dry spot. That's okay, I can stay dry. Ooh, splashing. Try and enjoy and relax and enjoy this process. Don't be so fast and crazy like me. You know what I think I'm going to do is add a little bit of my phthalo blue in a few places because I'm kind of losing it. And so I'm just going to do a little bit here as well. This is where I wanted to be lighter earlier, right? And I've already clearly gone a little bit too heavy. So maybe I'll just lift a little bit. I don't know if it's necessary that I have the light here, but I kind of like that. So let's keep that theme in mind and just maybe put a little bit less paint there. So just soak it up with my big brush and try and make it thirsty. So I'm dabbing my paint off on a paper towel here. Sorry, you can't quite see it. It's kind of off to the side. And then I'll use my purple and come into here and kind of fill in these little spots. I think a few of these, I'm going to add a little bit of water to them and just kind of push them into the background, and I will let them be more defined in the next layer. I probably could have drawn a few less lilacs for that layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of add water, and it's going to just push them. You know, I have a bit of paint, sorry. I've got a little bit of the purple mixture on my brush and some water. And so I'm just kind of pushing a few of these shapes back a bit by just pulling the background really kind of into them as well. So I'm almost happy with this. I don't love what I just did there, but that's okay. I might even go ahead and drop a little bit of my phthalo blue in here as well. I'm pretty dry here, so it's kind of not moving around as much as I would like. That's okay. I'll add a little bit more purple to that color, and it'll help it move. There we go. Drop it in there. Just kind of experimenting, having fun with this. I'm not, I don't have a really clear idea of what's going to happen in each layer, but maybe in a few of the really dark areas, I'll just blot just a little bit. Gives me a little bit more freedom with my next layer, and then I can come in and deepen things a little bit more in a minute. Maybe while it's wet, I'm going to put a little bit more of the pinky or magenta color, put a little bit more of that with the purple, and just kind of accentuate the area where I want to have more of this lilac kind of blossom or branch coming through here. And yes, I've kind of messed up a few of my little blossoms. I feel like the color has gone a little bit into the flower, and that's okay. I can fix that after. I would probably use a different brush in my next layers, because this tip sometimes is really helpful for getting in places, but it can also kind of, I don't know, I think it kind of moves around a little bit on its own too. So I don't know. I might lift it in a few places. I'm not 100% sure yet, so I'm just blotting a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm happy with how dark I went there in the center. There is dark areas, but I think I need to wait and do that in another layer. So sorry about that. Kind of figuring this one out as I go. All right, let's let this dry. If you're enjoying today's video, I'd love to invite you to join my free newsletter. In it, you'll find creative inspiration, art tips, studio updates, as well as be the first to know about workshops and lessons. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, you can sign up at the link in the description below. Now let's get back to painting. Okay, so now I'm going to just repeat that and draw in some more little flowers, and I'm happy with these ones that are kind of back here. These ones I'm going to let kind of be as part of the second layer. So I overdrew last time. So let's just let those be, and we'll draw just a few more in. And most of the time, I think I'm going to start drawing in some little circle buds. Now, it's hard to see what I'm drawing there, right? Try and go a little bit darker for your sake. I wouldn't recommend going dark with this. It'd be much better to work light. But anyways, it's easy to draw these other little petals in here because you're just drawing like half flowers or just parts of the petals that you can see. You don't have to have 4 petals on all of the little flowers. You can just kind of wing it a little bit. This one, I don't like what I just did. But basically, I'll just go around and draw a few more blossoms in here in this kind of section right here, and then you'll see better where these are when I go to wet it. And the other thing I'm going to start to draw is more of these little buds. So sometimes I'll do them just like, you know, a little circle, and then we'll draw on the details later. So sometimes I'm just going to do like a little oval or circle like that. Other times I might do it kind of like a couple little, like a little couple like that, something like that, or 3, almost like it's a miniature little tulip. So something like that. And then of course it's on kind of a little bit of a thicker, I don't know, they're kind of a trumpet shaped flower, aren't they? So if you want to have a little bit of a base to them, you can, but I'm going to just go ahead and draw a few of those in as well. I'm going to add a few of them up here to make it look like this is kind of this cluster. Maybe there's like a second cluster kind of coming down. Most of these I'm just going to draw like oval shaped circle things, whatever, and then I will define them more with my paint as I go on. So I'm just going to try and leave some of these spots, and I might even just do the water splat thing too to kind of define them. I'm going to just lighten things a little bit because I don't want to make everything too permanent with that pencil. All right, so I'm just going to quickly mix up a little bit more of my purple color here because I feel like I'm kind of getting low, and then I will have sufficient to work with. I'm wondering if I'll use a bit of both purples now. This is my purple made with the phthalo blue. It's a nice, beautiful, deep purple. And this is my ultramarine blue, and I'll put a little bit into here, and we'll have a couple purples on the go. Oh, that's way more bright and intense than I need. I think I want to go more onto the magenta side. So I'm just going to scoop a little bit of that out because I can tell I have way too much way too much ultramarine blue, I think. And kind of fill this in again with a little bit more of my quinacridone magenta. And I'll just show you on a little scrap here. That's the purple I've got. So it's deeper and darker. All right, so I am going to go ahead. I think what I'm gonna do is fill this whole area in to be a little bit darker maybe, and then just create a little bit of splashes up here. So I might do this one section like so. And I do have some little buds sort of defined there. So I'm just gonna start with the water, kind of come like this shape, and then I'm going to kind of start pulling in a little bit here with my smaller brush. I'm gonna tip my page. It's hard to see where I wet things, right? With the situation with my, yeah, I've gone over one of my buds, that's okay. Anyways, it's hard to see where I've wet just because of the water being clear. So I'll get the color on here and you'll be able to see better what I'm doing. Actually, you know, I want to use a different brush. I feel like the Simply Simmons brushes might be a better option. And sometimes with these little buds, I'll just come in a little bit and just almost define them like, ooh, that one I partly covered, that's okay. Yeah, I think I'm happier with using my Simply Simmons brushes for my details. We'll see. I'm kind of going a little bit out of the lines and that's okay. I will fix that when I go to do my fine details at the very end. So let's just kind of go around. I like how that's kind of washing out like that. That's kind of interesting. Might throw a little bit of the pinky color up here as well. I feel like I'm almost too purple. Dropping that in. Maybe we'll put a little bit more of our phthalo blue as we come down here. Again, I might want to leave a little area. So I'll put a little bit of darkness here, but right here, I don't mind having a little bit of light. So I'm not going to actually put much paint in there. I'm just going to let it be. I'm going to pick up a little more magenta as well with my purple because I feel like it could be a little more pink, especially as I come closer to these flowers. And I don't even have a line always drawn around here. I have these like these little circles, right, that we were talking about. But then there's places where I'm just coming in and I'm stopping. And I'm not coming all the way in. I'm just coming in partway, stopping. And I will, again, define things in my next layer. So this is just giving me a little bit of something to work with, and I'm almost sort of creating some of the shapes as I go because I can't see all my pencil lines, or I didn't put the pencil lines there in the first place. So kind of creating things a little bit along the way. Put a little more purple here. And then I have only wet this section so far, and now I'm going to come in and do some wet down here. And I want to put probably more water in this area and less pigment. I'll show you what I mean. So let's wet this whole shape down here, starting from about here, and we'll just bring the water down. Try not to go over any buds that I can actually see that I've drawn. And I'll come to about here, and then I'm going to start shaping things with my paint again. So this beautiful dark paint, I'm going to just fill this in here. Go crazy, put a little bit of the phthalo blue as well. Maybe a little bit of ultramarine. I don't know. Put the ultramarine into the purple. And then some water. I actually could even, in that area before I move on, I could do a little bit of water dropping in here, although I have pretty patterns. It's up to you. I'll see what I think of this idea. Not enough water? Oh, it's coming. A little bit of water splattering. Okay, let's go back down here and work before we get hard edges. So I'm just gonna add a little more as I come up to the flowers. I'm gonna use more magenta again. Ooh, that's dark. Dip a little more water on my brush and just come around here. And again, I'm not worrying about coming right into every nook and cranny. Some of the time, I'm just like calling it stop and stop as I come up to the flower. I'm not worrying about the fact that maybe I need to get a better shape. I can come in with a really dark color after to kind of create those shapes. So just kind of getting some shapes here that I'm sort of happy with. And maybe we'll even, again, with these round buds, this is a good time to just come in and almost like do that to them. Okay, water, and this is where I want to add more water as I come along this edge here. And I don't even have everything perfectly defined along here, so I'm just going to just kind of go like this. And almost like, again, you could draw these shapes out here or do what I'm doing, and I'm just kind of almost like creating the look of little buds by just creating these circles. And then I'll add some water to define on this side to kind of get things cleaned up. Put a little bit more dark right at the bottom here, in this corner. So again, I didn't have all these drawn perfectly because it was getting hard to see things with a pencil, so I am kind of just creating with my brush. And yes, some of them are lopsided, that's okay. I'm just gonna bring this in like so, and we will define some of these after. So I'm gonna leave that be just kind of that random shape that it is. And then I'll come up and kind of fill in this area with water just till I hit the area where there's little blossoms up at the top. So again, I kind of have something here drawn for myself, so just go something like that. And something like so, something like so. You bring it in a little bit here. Yeah, maybe like that. You know what? While it's wet, let's add more purple here. It's pretty dark in the reference photo and I like that. So let's go darker. And I think it needs a little more of the pinky color too, right? Or magenta. So I'll drop a little of the magenta in as well. So it's a little bit less purple. My purple maybe is too purple. Could maybe have just more magenta in general, but that's okay. We'll just drop it in now. Oh, and then we can't forget to add our water splatters. So let's do that quick. So I got my bigger brush and let's just do that. It'll just kind of add the effect of there being blossoms and stuff in the background or little buds or whatever. Just kind of goes psh. I like that. Okay, now let's work up here and then we'll let it dry. And you can see it's kind of leaking in right where I sprayed the water. The paint's coming in there, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to let it be. And in this area here, I'm really not sure. I'm having a hard time deciding exactly where I want to kind of end it, but let's just invent something. So I'll put some water. Sorry, my throat's being awkward today. And just kind of come in like so. Yeah, I think most of these I actually want to fill in because the color is way too light still. So I might just fill this whole shape in actually with some more water. And these can be just dark buds in the back. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just go darker. So fill this in and then I'll create a little bit of variety with my pigments here. Just get this color on first, or you could even use water at this stage. Okay, figure out where I'm defining things. I went kind of far with my dark pink color, but that's okay. And I'm going to drop a little bit of the purple and a little more magenta in a few places, just so we have variety happening up here. And I want to get really nice and deep and dark in this corner as well, because it is dark, and we might as well just get it dark sooner rather than later. I'll just kind of, I'm going back and forth between my purple color and my magenta. And I think I will drop in some water in here, and instead of doing it so wildly as I did down here, I'm just going to drop it in this way. I actually like the way things are moving around there with the pigments, so it's okay there. Okay. All right, so then now that this is dry, I'm going to come in and kind of fill in the remaining spots or the gaps between these. And some of the time I might even draw myself some guides because everything is kind of just blurred together in the center here. So I'm just basically drawing more little balls and little petals. So nothing fancy, just trying to kind of give myself just some basics so that I know where my gaps will be between the little balls and petals, if you will. The balls, I'm calling the little buds, just so that we have a little bit of definition here. So just coming in here, you can always draw, if you have a larger space, you can always draw a little flower if you want to, or try and draw a little flower. Sometimes I'll just do a little ball, a little bud, whatever. All right, and then I will come in with my purple color and just fill it in, and maybe a little bit of this magenta as well. I'll use a little bit of both on my brush. And a little bit of water, because right now I'm very concentrated. And just fill in the little spaces. So I'll speed the video up because it's kind of boring, and it's, I think, kind of self-explanatory. So I'll speed things up as I kind of go through here and just fill in the little gaps between the flowers and the buds. Some of these places I feel like I want a little dark, and so when I do that, I'll just drop a little water in and lift. So I'm almost just kind of creating the effect of there being another little leaf or bud in there, or a little petal rather, a little petal or a bud. While I'm at it, I'm going to also use my little scrub brush and clean up these splatters that I got earlier when I was coming in here. I think I'm going to draw a few of these in here. I think there were some in here, but they're kind of disappearing on me. And so I'm going to just draw a few more little flowers in here. And I'm not going to worry about having them perfect. Just kind of draw them in there so that they're, and then I'm going to draw a few more of these little blossoms in a few places, I think. I actually don't mind the way the top is looking. I do need to fill in a gap here still, I'm seeing with the rest. But you know what, right here, I'm going to try and draw in a few, just a few, because I feel like the shape is a little bit off. So maybe do a few like so, maybe one here. And then remember, they do kind of have this like kind of, they're like a, not quite a droplet, but they have the little tiny, like, I don't really think that's part of the sepal, but I don't know. I think that the bud is kind of held on with that tiny little, again, like how it opens like a trumpet shaped flower, if that makes sense. I'm not explaining myself very clearly. Maybe something like that. Maybe a little bit of something there. Yeah, and then I'm going to just put a little bit more color in here. I think I'll knock that blue down a bit. It's a little bit, I don't know, a little bit too loud. And so I'll just put a little bit of water over here. I don't want to do too much because I've got quite a bit of pigment. Ooh, covering that one a little bit. Quite a bit of pigment in a lot of places, and so the pigment will move around at this point. So I don't really want to have to put much more for paint or another layer here, but because I want to knock this down a little bit, I think I need to. We'll see. I'm going to re-wet this shape. I probably have to re-wet this whole shape to get it to work, or most of this shape. Because sometimes it can show where you kind of stop the wetting process. It shows. So just go maybe, I mean, up to there it might be okay. We'll try that. And then I'll just drop a little bit of the purple and the magenta in here just so that we kind of get a little bit more of that color happening, just like so. Yeah, I think I'm happier with this. Not the best brush I'm picking up for this, I think, right at the moment, but okay, good enough. It's a little bit sloppy, but it, I think I'm a little bit happier with how it's looking down here. Knock that blue down just a bit because it was, in my opinion, too blue for what I was starting to like with this painting. Okay, so at this point, I'll just fill in a few of those little gaps in these areas still. So in the areas, like this is dry now, where I kind of had to lift certain spots. I'm just going to drop just the purple and just a few little I'm almost just creating a few little triangles. I don't have a real rhyme or reason for this other than I'm almost just imagining that there are some petals back there and this is kind of the spaces between the petals or the little buds, if that makes sense. So just tinier little smidgens of purple. So almost like triangle shapes. So like I say, I don't really have a huge, like it's not like I'm thinking, oh, this is exactly where there's a bud or exactly where there's a flower. It's just creating a little bit of variety back there for our kind of our next layer. And like I say, I'm going to get some details coming soon. Okay, in here needs to still be filled up. So try and figure out where my flowers are and my buds. Right, when it's a bigger shape, then I think a little more intentionally. When it's a smaller shape, not so much. Okay. In here, I'll just fill in a little bit. Actually, I don't mind creating a little bit of something there, as if there's a bud. Okay, let's just add a little water here, and then we're gonna call that good for this shape. I don't really like the fact I just added water. I'm kind of losing a little bit of what I had there. But overall, I think I am happy with some of the way this is looking. I'm gonna come in here, I'm noticing some shapes in here that are still needing to kind of get filled in. And then I'll do all my final details at the end. And this will kind of, everything will pop and come more to life, if you will. I might even take some of this other purple I have here because I think it's a bit darker and use it for some of these dark details, some of the very small spaces. I could even do a few little, almost like stems, if you will. They kind of almost are the opposite of negative shape. If you look in the reference photo, you can almost see some of the stems in the back here. They just kind of create these nice little dark lines, and I don't mind that. I don't want them to be super dark, so if they're starting to get super dark, I'll just blot them a little bit so that they're just there, but not quite so strong. We could even switch back to a lighter purple to draw some of them in if they're getting a bit strong. Lighten a little bit here. I almost could have a little bit of something, a little bit more definition around the edges of some of these. I wonder if I should go around where it's dry and just use a pencil and just kind of add a few buds here or there. Overall, I'm happy with the shape. This I'm not as happy with, but oh well. I'm not sure that I really want to. You know what I can do? I can try and just blot out a few little bud shapes just by making like a little circle here with this. Maybe I can do that, or even lift them a little bit with my scrub brush. Let's see if I can just create a little bit of almost like soft little buds back here. It's kind of working. Kind of like that. I think I might do that in a few places. Ooh, the paper is a little bit delicate here. I can feel it doesn't feel quite right. Be careful if you are hitting an area that's a little bit too soft. Yeah, I'm going to do this for creating just a few more buds. I'm just going to do this method because it gives me just a little bit of these nice, kind of the effect of buds, but they're actually softer as well. So maybe do a little one here. Lifted a little bit more than I'd like to. I think I'm a bit drier than I would like to be there. Dab a little bit. Dab a little bit. Yeah, I'm liking the effect of doing these, a few of these almost just soft, gentle, kind of scrubbed out, if you will. Looks like negative shapes, but they're really, we've almost added them positively with our scrub brush. So, and then blot. It's easy to get carried away, which I think might be happening here. I'm starting to get a little bit, I'll just soften that one a little bit so it's a little bit less, I don't know, it's getting a little bit too, I don't know, contrived looking there. And let's see, maybe a little bit of something here. Yeah, I'm liking this quite a lot now that I'm adding these little things to it. Okay, am I overdoing it now? I think I'm very close to overdoing it. Alrighty, I better call it quits before I completely overdo. And I might come in and just add a few more of those little stems now. I do like that effect, and I can add just a few here and there. Just a few, almost just a few lines, if you will. So nothing too crazy. Maybe a little bit more of this purple here. Like I say, I still want to add a few more details to things as well. Just want to add a little bit of something in a few places. Okay, up here we definitely need to define this more. So let's just create a little bit of negative shape, something kind of between here. Just drawing that on there to give me a little bit of guidance, and then I'll just come in here with this. And ooh, that's the other thing you can do if you've kind of lost that those little stem things on the lilac. You can always negative. You can always kind of lift out with your scrubber. So do a little bit of that in a few places too. Like right here, I'll lift it a little bit. No, let's get it darker first and then we can lift it. Something like that. Kind of come down here, fill this in. It's okay. All right, now what I'm going to do is use diluted paint and do the little details. I'm not even really sure. Oof. Should we try a little bit of yellow? It seems like, ooh, it would add a little something, but it seems almost a little bit scary at this point. Let's try it. I've kind of got a dull yellow here that I had mixed up with a bunch of other, basically had a little bit of the other primaries in here. So it would be yellow with a tiny bit of red and a tiny little bit of blue, just to kind of make a muddier yellow. I think I'm going to use that. And I'm just going to do these little diamond shapes inside of some of these with this color. No, that's ugly. That's a little bit too green. Wonder if I can just come in. That's not a bad color when it's diluted enough. Maybe I can use it. Just need to have more diluted paint. And I'm just going to do these little triangles just in a few spots. Yeah, too dark, but that's okay. I'm going to do the blot thing, make it faster and easier. So I'll just do these just here and there, just in these more open ones, just so we have a little something to them. Get away with a little more darkness on that one. This one I got a blot. A little bit here. What I'm going to do now is to take this color, I might use a little bit more magenta as well, and I'm just going to add a little bit of detail to some of these. And I'm just going to put a little bit into some of the, kind of like along the petals in a few places, just the edges like so, and then I'll soften them with my clean brush. It's just going to give me a tiny bit of detail that's going to bring a little bit of life to some of these flowers without being too crazy. Do a little bit of this. Like I say, kind of at the edges, and then I might add a little bit of like, almost like a center, a little bit of a center vein or something on a few of them as well, just to create a little bit of definition here. So I'm just kind of coming around the edges of the petals, put a little paint, soften it a little bit, and That's all I'm going to do with these, I think. I think it's just adding a little touch of something to help. And it's also, you can also do this to kind of separate the petals a bit if they're joining together too much. I just slopped that one, but I'll show you what I mean here. So this one back here, if I want to separate it from the one in front, or this one here, I can kind of just do that a bit, and it kind of gives the impression that the petals are a little bit separated from each other. So I'm going to do that here, a little bit here. Wish I had done it to the back one, but that's okay. Let's do it on this one, separate it from the ones beside it. So again, I just have some of the magenta, mostly, a little bit of purple, but mostly magenta on the smaller brush, which is the 6, and then my 8. I'm just using the 8 to kind of just blend it around with a little bit of clear water. Oops. And like I say, I could be picking at this and refining it forever. So once I do a few of these, I might speed it up while I finish them off, and then I'll be back to show you my next details. Okay, I want to add a little more blue to those after, but in the meantime, I'm going to take the purple, and I'm just going to kind of like create a little bit of definition to some of these buds. So I'm going to pick a few. Let's go maybe down here where these are a little more defined. I'm just going to add a little bit like of a, and just add kind of like that crease there where it's like separating the two little petals on the bud, because some of these buds are closed completely, right? And so maybe all you'll see is a little line like that, and other ones are just slightly open, and so you might have one petal a little bit darker than the other. So they're just super small, but you can see by just kind of breaking this up, creating a little line to split those petals, softening the edge, we're getting just a small little bit of definition there. And I'm even going to push some of these buds back if they're like, okay, this one looks like he's behind these two, so I'm just pushing him back by putting a bit of paint at the edge, softening it with water. So I'm, again, just very gently pushing a few things kind of backwards compared to the shapes beside them. And when I want to go a little darker, I'll take the purple color that's darker and do the same thing. So once again, I'll just speed it up as I kind of work my way through the painting. Just like I say, when I see a shape that's kind of two shapes seem fused together, I'll push one back by darkening where the edges meet. And sometimes I might even end up darkening the whole shape. And then in the case of the buds, like I say, I'm often kind of creating a little split in the petals, so it looks like there's two little petals making up the bud. And I'll do that up here for sure, because these ones are very, very much needing some attention. And yes, they're very, very purple looking for a bud, but that's okay. That's just how things worked out, so. And in this case, I feel like that one kind of had a little stem on the bud, so I'm just kind of lifting a bit to create that look. And as I do this, I'm just really, like I say, trying to separate the shapes a little bit that still seem like they're stuck together. And so I just darken the edge of one of them and then soften that edge, and it pushes it kind of behind the one in front. So I just keep repeating that as I go through this and just making those decisions kind of on the fly. Sometimes I have a rhyme or reason for it, as in if it's a flower, I'm usually bringing it to the front. But other times I'm not even sure if something's a flower, a petal, or a bud. And so I just kind of play with it and see if I like how it looks, and then I leave it alone. So it's one of those things you just kind of have to play with a little bit. And even here, some of my petals are looking a little bit wonky, so I'm just actually just kind of carving them out with a darker color, and that's helping give them a bit of definition as well. I can kind of get away with it, even though it's not always making a lot of sense where I'm going. Just because of the way things are already kind of getting pushed into the background in certain ways, I feel like I can get away with doing what I'm doing here. And finally, I'm going to define these a little bit, these little diamond shapes on our little centers here. So I'm just going to kind of come around the outside of them with this darker color and fade that out into the flower this way. So just soften the edges a little bit. Maybe doing it not on every side. I actually kind of like how that one turned out. It doesn't really, I didn't do anything along the top edge, so let's just do it along the bottom edges. Maybe a little bit on one side like that, and then soften them out. This one, because it's tipped this way, I'm going to do it this way instead. This one's gone a little dark, but it's okay. I won't even bother softening that little one there. He's so small. So I'm kind of going the opposite. I'm at the top of some of these when I'm doing these ones that are kind of tilted over for us. Not that it really matters too much. I think whatever you do, it'll probably look fine. The shapes are so tiny at this point that things aren't super visible. As you can see, I'm kind of quite zoomed in. And once you zoom out, these aren't really all that. Gotta fix this one a bit. I'm doing wonky things on it. I was gonna say things aren't that noticeable if they're not perfect, but then I go and start picking at one and making it kind of a mess. But that would be me. That would be the way I would do it. Maybe I'll put a little bit on this one too. It needs a little something. And then I'll just maybe add just a tiny bit more of our shadow, maybe this purple color, and do the same thing I was doing before, but just in some of these petals that are looking a little bit blah. I'll create kind of like so that part of it is more shaded than the other. So just kind of go ahead and like maybe put a little bit of shadow on one side of the petal and soften it. Or do a little bit around the edges, the outside edges. This one seems a little harsh. Just come a little bit in here. Ooh. Okay, I need a little bit lighter purple on my brush. I think I'm just getting too dark too quick, so I'll just dab my brush off a little bit, and that might be good. This one I'm going to define by pushing it behind the one in front of it, so that's where I'm putting the purple on this one. Then you put a little bit of extra purple. Again, push it behind. So see, this one's in front, this one's behind now. Do the same sort of thing here. This one can be the one that's behind. Some of these I'm just doing the half or a little bit of detail just to kind of give it a little something, bring it to life. This one I could actually define the edge of that petal a little bit, push it behind this one, or push it into the background a bit because it's a wonky shape. Same with this one. I'm seeing a few wonky shapes here. So again, when I see wonky shapes, I'm just kind of using the dark color and pushing that into the background. Oof, this one I kind of went wonky right on the shape, but that's okay. push this one back a bit. You can definitely see how pushing the, like going on the petal behind, adding that color, softening the edges is just pushing things behind and giving you that sense of depth. Yeah, I think I'm actually kind of happy with that. I'm surprised. I was worried at one point when I was in the messy middle on this. I was like, ooh, Jessica, what have you done? What have you done? But it's okay. It took a little longer than I would have liked, which is why I'm time-lapsing some of it, because I just kind of picked at it certain spots. As you know, some of those shapes just had to kind of get played with and until I was happy, and that's okay. That's kind of the nature of this sort of painting. It's a little bit more of a picky painting, and you just have to kind of keep pushing those shapes until you're happy with them, pushing something behind another one, and just kind of thinking about putting anything behind that you can, and letting the other lighter color shapes kind of pop up to the top. And you're probably seeing things on mine that you would fix still, and I'm probably not seeing them, and that's okay. Just know that's kind of the way things are with painting. Is it's very easy when you get in it to kind of miss things, and you might come back to your painting later. It will probably be what happens to me, and something will pop out as like, oh, I wish I had done that, or I had to push that a little further back. But overall, I think I'm mostly happy with this. So I think well, maybe let myself pick for just another minute, but otherwise I think I'm going to call it done. Thank you to anyone who actually watched till the end. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it's brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, and then it's inspired you to continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again soon. Bye.